I did it for us, Benjamin said desperately. For Papa, for Mama, for you. We were dying, Christabel. What choice did I have? Christabel shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. But at what cost? That money. It's blood money, Benjamin. And Mr. Okon, if he finds out... He won't, Benjamin insisted. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. I've been careful. No one knows. People are talking, Benjamin, Christabel said softly. They're starting to ask questions. And Mr. Okon, he has eyes everywhere. As if to emphasize her point, a shadow fell across them. They looked up to see Uncle Austin standing there, a sly grin on his face. Well, well, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. What's this I hear? My dear nephew is in some kind of trouble. Benjamin stood quickly, positioning himself between Uncle Austin and Christabel. It's nothing, Uncle. Just family matters. Uncle Austin's grin widened. Family matters, eh? Funny how these family matters started right around the time you came into all this mysterious money. Benjamin felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. I don't know what you're talking about, Uncle. If you'll excuse us. But Uncle Austin wasn't finished. He leaned in close, his breath hot on Benjamin's face. Listen here, boy. I know you're hiding something, and I intend to find out what it is. You'd do well to remember who has friends in high places in this village. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Benjamin and Christabel staring after him in shock. We have to do something, Christabel said urgently. Benjamin, this can't go on. We need to return the money. Tell someone anything. Benjamin ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. No, it's too late for that. If we return the money now, Mr. Okon will know it was us who took it. And if we tell anyone... Christabel, you saw what he did to that man in the forest. He wouldn't hesitate to do the same to all of us. Christabel's face paled at the memory of Benjamin's story. Then what do we do? Benjamin was silent for a moment, weighing their options. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and determined. We leave. All of us. We'll use the money to start a new life somewhere far from here. Somewhere Mr. Okon can't find us. Christabel looked skeptical. Leave? But what about Papa? He's still recovering. And Mama? This village is all they've ever known. It's the only way, Benjamin insisted. We'll explain everything to them. They'll understand when they know the danger we're in. As they talked, making hurried plans, neither of them noticed the figure lurking in the shadows nearby, listening to every word. One of Mr. Okon's men smiled to himself as he slipped away to report what he had heard. That evening, as the sun set over the village, casting long shadows across the dusty ground, Benjamin gathered his family in their small hut. With a heavy heart, he began to explain everything: the money, the danger, and their need to leave immediately. Papa Benji and Agatha listened in stunned silence, their faces a mix of shock, disappointment, and fear. When Benjamin finished, the hut was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Papa Benji spoke, his voice weak but firm. My son, what have you done? It goes against everything we have ever taught you. Benjamin hung his head in shame. I know, Papa, but I couldn't bear to see you suffer any longer. I thought I could make things right. Agatha reached out and took Benjamin's hand. Oh, my child, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But what's done is done. Now we must face the consequences. So you'll come? Benjamin asked, hope rising in his chest. You'll leave with us? Papa Benji and Agatha exchanged a long look. Then Papa Benji nodded slowly. "We have no choice. This village is no longer safe for us. But Benjamin, you must promise me something." "Anything, Papa." "When we're safe, we will find a way to return this money. We cannot build a new life on a foundation of theft and deceit." Benjamin nodded solemnly. "I promise, Papa, we'll make this right." As the family began to pack their meager belongings, a sense of urgency filled the air. They worked quietly, jumping at every sound from outside. But even as they prepared to flee, forces were aligning against them. For at that very moment, in a darkened room on the other side of the village, Mr. Okon was receiving the report from his spy. A cruel smile spread across Mr. Okon's face as he listened. "So?" he said, his voice soft but filled with menace. "Our little thief thinks he can run away with my money, does he? Well, we'll just have to see about that." He turned to his men, his eyes glinting dangerously in the dim light. "Prepare yourselves. Tonight, we pay a visit to the Benji family. And this time, we'll make sure they understand the true cost of stealing from me." As night fell over the village, two very different groups prepared for a confrontation that would change everything. In their small hut, the Benji family packed frantically, unaware that their time had already run out. And in the shadows, Mr. Okon and his men moved silently through the darkened streets, closing in on their unsuspecting prey. The stage was set for a clash that would determine not just the fate of the stolen money, but the very lives of Benjamin and his family. As the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of impending doom, one thing was certain. By dawn, nothing would ever be the same again. The night was unusually still as Benjamin and his family hurriedly packed their belongings. The air felt thick with tension, as if the very atmosphere sensed the impending danger. Christabel kept glancing nervously out the small window, jumping at every shadow. "Hurry," Benjamin urged in a hushed voice. "We need to leave before anyone notices." Papa Benji, still weak from his illness, leaned heavily on Agatha as they gathered what little they could carry. The weight of their situation hung heavily on all of them. Suddenly, Christabel gasped, "Benjamin, look!" Outside, flickering lights were approaching their hut. The unmistakable glow of torches cut through the darkness, accompanied by the low murmur of voices. Benjamin's heart raced. "It's too late," he whispered, panic rising in his throat. "They're here." Papa Benji straightened up, his face set with determination, despite his frailty. "Benjamin, take your sister and go. Your mother and I will stall them." "No," Benjamin protested. "I won't leave you." But, before they could argue further, a loud bang shook the door of their hut. "Benjamin, Benji!" A deep, menacing voice called out. "We know you're in there. Come out now and bring what you stole." The family froze, terror etched on their faces. They knew that voice. It was Mr. Okon. Outside, Mr. Okon stood surrounded by his men, his massive frame illuminated by the torchlight. His face was a mask of barely contained rage. Beside him, looking both smug and terrified, stood Uncle Austin. "I told you, Mr. Okon," Uncle Austin said, his voice quavering slightly. "The boy's been flashing money around. It had to be him who took your property." Mr. Okon barely acknowledged him, his eyes fixed on the silent hut. "Break it down," he ordered his men. Inside, Benjamin made a split-second decision. "The back," he whispered urgently to his family. "There's a loose panel. We can slip out." As Mr. Okon's men began to batter the door, the Benji family scrambled towards the back of the hut. Benjamin helped his father through the narrow opening, then his mother and sister. He was about to follow when the front door finally gave way with a thunderous crash. Mr. Okon ducked into the small hut, his eyes quickly adjusting to the darkness. He spotted Benjamin just as he was about to escape. "There you are, you little thief," he roared, lunging forward. Benjamin's survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed a nearby pot and hurled it at Mr. Okon's head. The big man ducked, but the distraction was enough. Benjamin slipped through the opening and ran. The night exploded into chaos. Shouts filled the air as Mr. Okon's men gave chase. The Benji family ran as fast as they could, but Papa Benji's weakness slowed them down. "The forest," Benjamin gasped between breaths. "We can lose them there." They plunged into the thick undergrowth, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, they could hear the angry shouts of their pursuers growing closer. Suddenly, Papa Benji stumbled and fell. "Go!" he wheezed. "I'll only slow you down." "No!" Agatha cried, trying to help him up. Benjamin made another quick decision. "Christabel, take Mama and Papa deeper into the forest. Head for the old abandoned shrine. I'll lead them away." "But Benjamin," Christabel began to protest. "No time to argue." Benjamin cut her off. "Go, I'll find you later." With a last anguished look at her brother, Christabel helped her parents up, and they disappeared into the darkness. Benjamin took a deep breath, then began to run in a different direction, deliberately making noise. "Over here," he shouted. "Come and get me." The ploy worked. He heard the pursuers change direction, following his voice. Benjamin ran faster than he ever had in his life, his lungs burning, his legs aching, but fear and adrenaline pushed him on. He didn't know how long he ran, dodging trees and leaping over fallen logs. The voices behind him grew fainter, but he didn't dare slow down. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet disappeared. Benjamin found himself tumbling down a steep incline, unable to stop his fall. He landed hard at the bottom, the wind knocked out of him. As he lay there gasping for breath, he heard a noise that made his blood run cold. A low, menacing growl. Slowly, Benjamin turned his head. There, not 10 feet away, stood a leopard. Its eyes glowed in the moonlight, fixed on Benjamin with predatory intent. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Benjamin's mind raced. He was trapped between the leopard and his human pursuers. Both meant certain death. Just then, a shout rang out from above. "He went this way." The leopard's head snapped up at the noise. It gave Benjamin one last look, then melted away into the underbrush, evidently deciding that one prey wasn't worth the risk of facing multiple humans. Benjamin let out a shaky breath, but his relief was short-lived. He could hear Mr. Okon's men getting closer. Ignoring the pain in his battered body, he forced himself to his feet and started running again. As he ran, his mind was in turmoil. Where were his parents and Christabel? Had they made it to safety? And what about the money? In all the chaos, he had forgotten about the buried fortune that had started this whole nightmare. Lost in these thoughts, Benjamin didn't notice the figure that suddenly stepped out from behind a tree until it was too late. He collided hard with the person, sending them both sprawling to the ground. As he scrambled to get up, ready to flee again, a familiar voice stopped him cold. "Benjamin? Is that you?" Benjamin blinked in disbelief. "Uncle Austin?" Indeed, it was his uncle, looking disheveled and out of breath. His usually smug expression was replaced by one of fear. "What are you doing here?" Benjamin demanded, suspicion and anger rising in him. You led Mr. Okon to us. Uncle Austin held up his hands, placatingly. I know. I'm sorry, nephew. I didn't realize how dangerous he truly was. When I saw what he did to your hut, how he threatened your family, I couldn't be part of it anymore. I've been trying to find you, to warn you. Benjamin hesitated, torn between his distrust of his uncle and the desperate need for any ally in this nightmare. Before he could decide, another shout rang out, closer this time. I heard voices, this way. Uncle Austin grabbed Benjamin's arm. We have to go. I know a place where we can hide. Against his better judgment, Benjamin nodded. They took off running again, Uncle Austin leading the way. They ran for what felt like hours, the sounds of pursuit fading and then disappearing altogether. Finally, Uncle Austin led them to a small cave, hidden behind a curtain of vines. In here, he panted. We should be safe for now. As they caught their breath in the darkness of the cave, Benjamin's mind was whirling. Could he trust his uncle? Where were his parents and Christabel? And how were they going to get out of this mess? Little did Benjamin know. His troubles were far from over. For even as he hid in the cave with his untrustworthy uncle, forces were at work that would soon bring his world crashing down around him. In another part of the forest, Mr. Okon stood with a group of his men. His face was a mask of cold fury. Spread out, he ordered. I want that boy found. And when you find him, bring him to me. Alive. As his men dispersed, Mr. Okon allowed himself a small, cruel smile. Run all you want, Benjamin, he muttered. But you can't hide forever. And when I catch you, you'll learn the true meaning of pain. The night was far from over. And for Benjamin, the worst was yet to come. The cave was damp and cold, the silence broken only by the ragged breathing of Benjamin and Uncle Austin. As the adrenaline of their escape began to wear off, Benjamin felt the weight of his situation crushing down on him. What have I done? He whispered, more to himself than to his uncle. My family, they're out there somewhere, in danger because of me. Uncle Austin shifted uncomfortably in the darkness. Benjamin, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. Benjamin turned to face his uncle, anger suddenly flaring. You never meant for it to go this far. You led a murderer to our home. You put my entire family in danger. I know, Uncle Austin said, his voice heavy with regret. I was jealous, Benjamin. When I saw your family's fortune changing, I couldn't stand it. I've always felt overshadowed by your father. And when I thought you had found some secret to success. So you decided to destroy us? Benjamin spat. Uncle Austin hung his head. I was a fool. I thought I could get Mr. Okon to scare you a little. Maybe get a cut of whatever you had. I didn't know he was so dangerous. As Benjamin listened to his uncle's confession, a plan began to form in his mind. It was risky, perhaps even foolish, but it might be their only chance. Uncle, he said slowly, I need you to do something for me, to make this right. Uncle Austin looked up, hope glimmering in his eyes. Anything, nephew? What do you need? Benjamin took a deep breath. I need you to go to Mr. Okon. Tell him you found me, that you know where the money is. What? Uncle Austin gasped. But that's suicide. Listen, Benjamin urged. You'll tell him that I'm willing to return the money, but only if he guarantees the safety of my family. Arrange a meeting at the old abandoned shrine deep in the forest. That's where I told my family to hide. Uncle Austin shook his head vehemently. No, it's too dangerous. He'll kill us all. He'll kill us anyway if we do nothing, Benjamin countered. This way, we have a chance. Please, Uncle. You owe us this much. After a long moment, Uncle Austin nodded reluctantly. All right, I'll do it. But what will you do? Benjamin's face hardened with determination. I'm going to get the money. And then I'm going to end this, one way or another. As Uncle Austin slipped out of the cave to find Mr. Okon, Benjamin made his way back to where he had buried the cursed fortune. The forest seemed different now, every shadow a potential threat, every rustle of leaves a pursuer closing in. Finally, he reached the distinctive tree where he had hidden the money. As he dug frantically, his mind raced with doubts. Was he doing the right thing? Could he trust Uncle Austin to play his part? And most importantly, were his parents and Christabel safe? With the bag of money in his hands, Benjamin made his way towards the old shrine. The sky was beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn, casting long shadows through the trees. As he approached the shrine, he heard voices. His heart leapt when he recognized Christabel's whisper. Christabel, he called softly. Mama, Papa, are you there? Benjamin? Christabel's relieved voice came from inside the crumbling structure. We're here. We're all here. Benjamin rushed inside, embracing his family, but their reunion was short-lived. He's coming, Benjamin said urgently. Mr. Okon, Uncle Austin is leading him here. What? Agatha gasped. Why would you do that? Benjamin quickly explained his plan. It's our only chance. When Mr. Okon arrives, I'll give him the money. But I need you all to be ready to run. No matter what happens to me, you have to get away. Papa Benji grasped his son's hand. No, my boy. We're in this together. We won't abandon you. Before Benjamin could argue, they heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Mr. Okon's booming voice carried through the trees. Come out, wherever you are, little thief. Benjamin took a deep breath, squeezing his family's hands one last time. Then he stepped out of the shrine, the bag of money clutched tightly in his grasp. Mr. Okon stood there, flanked by his men. Uncle Austin hovered nervously at the edge of the group, his eyes darting between Benjamin and Mr. Okon. So, Mr. Okon said, his voice dangerously soft. You thought you could steal from me and get away with it? Benjamin straightened his shoulders, meeting Mr. Okon's gaze. I have your money. It's all here. Take it and leave my family alone. Mr. Okon laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the forest. Oh, it's not that simple, boy. You see, it's not just about the money anymore. It's about respect, about making an example. He snapped his fingers and his men started to move forward. Benjamin's heart raced. This wasn't going according to plan. Suddenly, a commotion broke out at the edge of the clearing. Village voices could be heard, coming closer. What's going on? One of Mr. Okon's men asked nervously. Uncle Austin stepped forward, a triumphant smile on his face. I took the liberty of informing the village elders about your activities, Mr. Okon. They're not too happy about a murderer and thief terrorizing their people. Mr. Okon's face contorted with rage. He lunged for Uncle Austin, but Benjamin intercepted him, swinging the heavy bag of money. It connected with Mr. Okon's head with a sickening thud. Chaos erupted. Mr. Okon's men, seeing their leader fall and hearing the approaching villagers, turned and fled into the forest. Benjamin's family rushed out of the shrine. Papa Benji supported Agatha and Christabel. as the village elders and a group of young men burst into the clearing, they found a strange tableau. Mr. Okon lay unconscious on the ground, the Benji family huddled together, and Uncle Austin standing over the fallen giant with a look of disbelief on his face. In the days that followed, the truth came out. Mr. Okon's reign of terror over the village ended. The money, it was discovered, had been stolen from the village cooperative fund years ago. It was returned, with Benjamin hailed as an unlikely hero. Uncle Austin, in a surprising turn of events, confessed to his part in the affair and offered to make amends by using his business connections to help the village prosper. As for Benjamin and his family, they found themselves at a crossroads. The village welcomed them back as heroes, but the experience had changed them all. "What do we do now?" Christabel asked one evening as they sat outside their rebuilt hut. Benjamin looked at his family, then out at the village that had been both his home and the site of his greatest trial. "We start again," he said softly. "But this time we do it right. No shortcuts, no easy money, just honest work and faith in each other." Papa Benji smiled, patting his son's hand. "You've learned a valuable lesson, my boy. The greatest wealth is not in money, but in the love of family and the respect of your community." As the sun set on the village, Benjamin felt a peace he hadn't known in months. The nightmare was over, and though the scars would remain, he knew that with his family by his side, he could face whatever the future held. In the end, the cursed fortune had brought not destruction, but redemption. It tested Benjamin, pushed him to his limits, and ultimately helped him discover the true values of family, community, and integrity. As night fell and the stars came out, Benjamin made a silent vow. He would spend the rest of his life working to be worthy of the second chance he'd been given. And he would never forget the lesson he'd learned at such a high cost, that the richest man is not the one with the most money, but the one with the most love.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Kindly click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share this video. Watch out for more intriguing and eye-catching videos from your favorite YouTube channel.